Hi, welcome to my first recap and review for Arrow Season 8, the final season of Arrow. If you did not watch this week's episode, do not watch this video until you watch it. Go check out the episode on cwtv.com and then come back here because we are talking full spoilers. All right, let's get into this. So, Arrow Season 7, I guess, had some potential in the beginning, but again, like Flash Season 5, it just went downhill really fast and I just was not loving it at all. But I have hope for this season because one, it's shorter, which means that I have to, make a more condensed story, but also it's leading directly into Crisis on Infinite Earths, where we know that Barry's disappearing and Oliver is supposed to die, which is really crazy, but it also seems like it would make sense because this is his final season, right? This is his last ever, well, maybe not last, because I think they said he might come back eventually, but as of right now, it seems like this is his last hurrah. Like, this is the last thing that Oliver is going to do in the Arrowverse, right? We know that this season is going to be very crisis heavy, and we see that very, very quickly in this episode. So it starts off like the beginning of season 1, where Oliver is back on Lian, but the difference is, one, his hair is short again, and two, instead, when you see in season 1, you saw a little staff thing or like a stick in the ground with Deathstroke's mask and an arrow in it, but this time we see Batman. So they're wondering, well, what's going on here? And then you see him go back to his mansion where his mom is alive and Malcolm Merlyn is there and Tommy's alive. And you're like, okay, what's going on? Is this a dream? Is this some alternate dimension? What's happening here? Fast forward, you see him as a Green Arrow trying to break into this lab, and then another Green Arrow tries to stop him. And then before this other Green Arrow tries to like take him out with an arrow, we see Black Canary come in and then like deflect the arrow and then look at Oliver and say, what are you doing on my Earth? And then it clicks that we're on Earth 2 with the former Black Siren, now Black Canary, and a new Green Arrow, who is Adrian Chase, who is Prometheus on Earth 1, which I thought was a really interesting twist, which also makes sense because in the Flash season 2, we saw that Earth 2 was like kind of the opposite, where the heroes are villains and the villains are heroes, so that does make sense. And leading into that, that also means that now Tommy, who was like a good guy on Earth 1, is now the Dark Archer instead of Malcolm Merlyn. So Oliver's like approaching this Earth as if it's his. So he's like, oh yeah, I already know this, I already know this. But then they keep pulling the rug out from under him, and I thought that was really interesting. And it turns out that the Monitor sent him to Earth 2 on a mission to collect Dwarf Star. And we don't know what it's for. Oliver doesn't even know what it's for, but he just knows that this is his mission because, as we know, he's gonna die, and that's what the Monitor told him. But he said, you can help me prevent this crisis or like minimize the impact of this crisis if you come with me. Now we can see that this season's probably gonna be like Oliver doing missions for the Monitor across the multiverse and with the goal of trying to prevent or minimize the damage of this crisis, which I think is really great because it's a new thing, it's very refreshing. It also gives opportunity to play with a lot of different characters, like seeing different versions of the characters we already know, but it's also just a really great build up to the final Crisis on Infinite Earths event. So, continuing on, I'm gonna pull up my notes. 1 second. All right, so the next thing is that it's Starling City, right? So this is, again, because it's season 1, basically, but now it's Earth 2 version, right? So it's back to Starling City. Tommy's Dark Archer, and also Thea is dead, which is also crazy on Earth 2, but I think we are gonna see her again this season, but now we don't know, is it gonna be Earth 1 Thea, or is this gonna be Thea from a different Earth? We'll have to wait and see. And then we see Diggle show up, and we think, okay, it's Earth 2 Diggle, whatever. And that's what Oliver is like going with it, and like, oh yeah, I know you, blah, blah, blah. And then they're in this car, and he's talking to them, and then he's like, oh, so you're John Diggle. And he's like, yeah, you can call me Diggle or Dig. And then Oliver smiles like, oh yeah, this reminds me of the good old times. And then he says, well, time for me to jump out of the car as usual, because again, in season 1, you see him keep trying to escape Diggle, who's his guard, but then the door is locked, and then Diggle's like, I'm not falling for that again. And it turns out it's Earth 1 Diggle who snuck his way onto Earth 2 to figure out what's up with Oliver. All he learned is from Felicity. Felicity told him, yeah, the Monitor showed up and told Oliver he has to go on this mission, but he did not tell him anything else. So Diggle goes to find out for himself what is Oliver up to, and it turns out Oliver tells him that the end of this leads to his death. Like, Crisis is where he dies, and Diggle's like, okay, but that means you can't do all this without us. And so we see Oliver and Diggle team up again with Black Canary and the new Green Arrow to take down Dark Archer, Tommy, and get the Dwarf Star. And that was really great too. We got some really great action scenes with all of them fighting together. And then we have Oliver and Tommy fighting on the roof, kind of like what he did with Malcolm Merlyn in season 1. That was a really great thing. And that's what I really liked about this episode was there were a lot of great callbacks to previous parts of season 1, which I really think is what worked. And then there's also a lot of new twists to things and a lot of great action, right? And the biggest thing I think that like really made this episode like really crazy was that at the very end, we see Diggle and Oliver leaving to continue their mission to go either back to Earth 1 or to whatever the next Earth is that the Monitor needs them to go to. But then Earth 2 starts falling apart, like disintegrating around them. And they grab Black Canary and they jump through a portal and get out of there. But Earth 2 is gone, which I was not expecting to happen so soon. So maybe this is what's going to happen is that as he's going to different Earths, he's going to see them all collapsing as this event, as this crisis starts to take shape, which is really crazy because we also have to think about Jesse and Harry, the other Harrison Wells. Are they alive? Did they escape in time? We don't know. Are they going to be in crisis? We don't know. So they may very well be dead, but we have no way of knowing right now. So that's going to be really crazy. I hope not. But then also I wonder how Team Flash is going to react to that they're possibly dead. We'll have to wait and see in Crisis. The second thing that happened in this episode was the future flashbacks, which for me weren't the strongest part of this episode because I didn't hate them in the last season, but there were definitely times where it took me out of the overall story of what was going on. And I think that was the case here where the stuff going on in the future timeline didn't really connect to what was going on in the present, like the lead up to Crisis. So I don't know why it was really included. I feel like it just took me out of what was going on. Like every time they went back to the future, I was like, well, can we go back to what's really going on? Because I want to see what's going on in the present because it's all crisis related. But we do get to see John Diggle Jr. as the leader of the Deathstroke squad, and that was great. So seeing him fight his brother and Mia and all that stuff. And then we see Mia not obeying the team or not being a team player, which we've kind of seen already. So there were some interesting things here and there, but I would say this episode would have been perfectly fine without the future flashbacks. But hopefully they find a way to tie this into Crisis. I don't know if they're going to find a way for them to time travel to help Oliver, or if it's just going to be like we see the ramifications of Crisis in the future. We'll have to wait and see. But overall, I would say I really love this episode. It makes me very excited for Crisis, and I'm really excited for the rest of the season to see how Arrow ends, because again, this is the final season. What did you think about Arrow Season 8 premiere? Let me know down in the comments. Also, don't forget to like this video, share it, and subscribe. I will see you in the next one.